From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. Hello, and thank you for being here. Today on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, my close friend Michele Flamer joins me, and Michele is a lifelong lesbian. And I bring Michele on today to really talk about her story as a lifelong lesbian, just to sort of demystify some things that I think later in life lesbians, or just those of us questioning our sexuality later in life, have created in our head, narratives we've created in our head about people that have been out forever. And that we have these ideas about where they are in their life and what they know and how they function. And today's podcast is to bring us all down to earth together and ground our feet there, where we are all human and imperfect and really living so many similar ways until we actually wake up and do the healing work. And it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or queer or trans. If you're not doing your work, you're going to be in a very different place than someone who has done their work. So it's not really about your sexuality. It's not about your gender. It is about how much have you chosen to learn, grow, and evolve. And the second note I want to make is that this week on Tuesday, July 1st, the Bi Life is opening its doors for the first time. And this is a community that I've created for women who are bisexual and they're in hetero-passing monogamous relationships. And they're having a lot of feelings about that, but they feel really alone with them and they don't have anyone to reflect back what they're experiencing, any struggles that they're having, feelings they're having about even just celebrating their bisexuality, questions about, do they need to explore this for it to be valid? Do they want to open their relationship? Do they want to stay in their relationship? And how to make peace with these feelings that they're having. And that is what this community is for. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to the Bi Life. And just for those of you that are wondering, well, what ages are these women? They really go from 30s all the way through late 60s. I really hope I get to work with you there. So thanks again for being here. And please like, follow, share, comment. I really appreciate you all. Hi, Michele.
Hi, Samantha.
So lovely to have you on as my guest.
I know.
You are my dear friend that is in my day-to-day. And now I get to have you on my podcast as a guest, which is so exciting. I'm in the hot
seat.
You're in the hot seat. It is all about you today.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm not used to that.
I know. You'll let me know if it gets too hot, if it gets too uncomfortable. We can cool it down.
Well, my last name is Flamer, so I think I can handle the heat.
I love it. We're going to get you right on the spot here.
I know. It's all good. I'm mentally prepared.
Good. So I thought it would be really helpful to hear, as the lifelong lesbian that you are, you came out when you were 19. So, came out at 19. And to just kind of really humanize all of us, whether we're lifelong lesbians or late in life lesbians, but we all have stories. We all have a path. We all have a journey, and we all have a choice, which is to learn and grow and evolve from what we're living, or to kind of not really be very curious and just keep following the path that was set out for you. And we each get to decide what we're going to do, right? So I'm not going to say there's a right or wrong way to do this. It is your choice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So take us through a little bit. You came out at 19. I know you had an early partner for a number of years in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How old were you when you met her?
Yeah, so I came out at 19. It's kind of funny how I I found myself at a gay bar, with the softball team of my college, and they always knew my last name. It really is Flamer. So in sports, it's a great name for sports. Like people just love it, right? And probably had I gone into politics, it would have been a fun name. But anyways, I was playing college tennis, and the softball team, when they were done with their practice, would walk by the courts, and they'd literally catcall out to me like, Flamer, when are you coming to the bar with us? Like, just come to the bar. And I'm like, why do I want to go to a bar? Like, I've never been a real big drinker or anything like that. And I always found my social group out on the field or on a tennis court, wherever sports were. And so, yeah, I found myself at this gay bar. And of course, I'm dating like a Jewish boy at this moment, Howie, who was on the baseball team of the college. And he was a sweetheart of a guy, and I ended up breaking up with him because I realized that I was gay. A couple of softball fun days, at the bar, and Michele gets her first kiss and is done. I'm done. So it's hilarious. I mean, most people knew I was gay before I think I knew I was gay. So, but yeah, in my mid-20s, I met a woman, and she was alluring and lovely and smart, and we had a relationship for 8 years, lived together. She was also, I would say, more of a later in life, I guess, at this point, because she hadn't gotten divorced ever with her ex-husband, who was much older. She was well traveled. I was godsmacked by her, honestly. Like, when you're coming out, especially in your 20s, like 3-month relationships, you're having like, one made it to 6 months. Okay. You're like just trying to figure out like even what you like sexually in bed, and
Mm-hmm.
how that all feels. And, it's just a fascinating time of learning oneself. But when I met, my girlfriend of 8 years, and I'll just call her Eve because that's her real name. That she never uses. So I'll just say Eve for right now.
Okay.
But so with Eve for 8 years, I mean, it was probably one of the most profound relationships that I'd ever had. I'd learned a lot. It was easy. It was beautiful. We would have sort of an open door policy. I really thought we were going to create a family together. I was closing in on my 30s, and I just thought I still actually would like to maybe carry a baby. She was 10 years older than me. So, I'm 30, she's 40. She's not really wanting to be pregnant any longer. She was Asian. One of the downfalls was that she wasn't out to her own mother, who was basically like the Chinese Joan Collins, like truly drove around in a freaking Rolls Royce. And, she was just hilarious and really loved me. But I had like a guest room in our home that she thought was my bedroom. Or so we thought. Like it literally was like 4 to 5 years in before Eve finally said to her mom, like, Michele and I have been together this whole time. And she said, I had a feeling, so that had its own challenges, and things like that. When you feel like a little bit of a second class citizen in your own home. And so that started to wear on me a little bit. And then when she finally told me around year 8 that she actually just didn't want to have a kid anymore, didn't want to start a family. And that was just really important to me. I mean, part of me is I grew up Jewish, and there's something to that where we have that in our minds of like, a body to give birth from, and my mom, I know she wanted a family. She was like, am I going to have a grandchild? And I'm like, we can adopt too. Like there's the power of adoption, surrogacy, whatnot. So that was probably the hardest breakup for me because it was the first time I was putting me first in that thought
Mm-hmm.
process of like, what do I want here? I could stay with her and never have a child,
Mm-hmm.
which, okay, if that was meant for me, but I knew I was meant to be a mom. I just didn't know what that all kind of looked like. I definitely knew at some point I would need a man or a sperm donor or whatnot, but just because, like, I can't undo my lesbianism, right? Like I can't undo this piece of me. So I realized I probably was going to have to align with a woman who was definitely into having a family. And so I broke up with Eve, had a job opportunity in Arizona and relocated for a job. And I had some family there. My dad had moved there after the 1994 earthquake, and moving into a new kind of chapter in my life. We had this beautiful life in West LA. We owned a antique store. We were very enmeshed in our whole life and being within a 3 mile radius, friends, open dinner, and then now all of a sudden I'm here, in an apartment in Arizona and
Yeah.
thinking, wow, like I cannot believe I'm here. I mean, I'm grateful that I had my father around who I was very close with, and my stepmom who I'm still very close with, and my little brother, which was great to, spend time with him and such. But all of a sudden I'm finding myself in this new job in this new city that I'm semi familiar with from visits, but like I had no idea what was coming my way. And I went on to an old website called Plan It Out. It was like apps, like, yeah, you remember Plan It Out?
I think I do. It sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
I really loved it. And I was also on Match.com. This is 2004, mind you.
Yeah.
So people were still putting in ads, and like the newspapers were still like
Mm-hmm.
happening. And then you had, Match.com and maybe a few other independents just sort of peaking. And that's where I met Carrie, my ex-wife. Um, and boy, were they different.
How much time was between the ending with Eve and Carrie?
I would say it was about 9 to 11 months.
Okay.
But I think when you're at the end of any long relationship, that there is a mourning that goes on well before we actually
Ended.
ended or are finally physically separated.
Separated. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time I decided to even go on an app, because I just don't go to the bars and stuff, I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And I went on a few dates. One of my old dear friends said that when she was dating, like a year before that, she met her now partner, still of like they're together now 26 years or something like that. But I remember when Beth was starting to go out on dates, and she was a psychologist, and she said it's all a mental and a numbers game. And I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? And she said, I'm going to focus and go on 100 dates. Clearly, if I'm focused on 100 dates, I'll probably meet someone before I get to the end of that 100 dates. Or what kind of cool lessons could I learn from that? And she met her now wife, Erin, after 4 dates. So I said, what happened to the other 96? Like, well, that's obviously not happening. So that was my mental thing. So I'm like, okay, Beth, I'm doing that. And funny enough, I met Carrie on the 4th date.
Oh my gosh.
You're like in that intentional manifest. You don't know you're manifesting at that moment, but you're really like energetically into it because God, the dating apps, like it's like a part-time job on those things.
Yeah.
And you could get really sucked into that, to that tornado of all. I met Carrie, and it was interesting because we had great conversation. I freaking pulled hey, want to meet tonight? Like, we just talked on the phone. I'm like, let's just meet in person. Like, it's like, I think I have to feel people's energy. And everyone wasn't texting at that point.
Mm-hmm.
People just got on a call, and you just got on a phone call. So, which I really prefer because
better. Yeah, it's better.
I'm horrible with text and tone still to this day. I have to tell people, if I'm at all neurodivergent, it's around that kind of space, like text and tone. And like, if you text me, I can hear your voice in it now, because we've been friends now for so long. It's like really great.
Yeah.
But for new people, it's
so hard.
So hard. Like, let's get on a phone call, at least the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So we met at a Starbucks that night. And I can't begin to tell you, it was a breath of fresh air in some instances. I was not physically attracted to her out of the gate. Like, it was a slow burn for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I lived in LA for so many years and I don't want to be rude because I think Carrie is a beautiful woman. Like, she's a beautiful woman. But LA standards and Arizona standards are very different. And so it was a little slower burn for me in that case, like, coming from a 5'11" Asian model actress, and very like dressed to the hill, like just tasteful tourists, I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Aesthetics were important, things like that. And Carrie was literally the exact opposite, like blonde, light eyes, greenish blue eyes, more of an hour shape. But it was the communication style between the two for me. The Asian communication style is a little too reserved for me at times. And Carrie was much more open and communicative and super smart. And I just found all of that sort of like, that was sexy to me in that way.
Yeah, especially after all those years of not having that's such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, just having someone who's reciprocal in that communication style.
Mm-hmm.
So it took like a month, and we were out at karaoke, and some girl came up and hit on her, and I was like, why am I having a feeling about this? I had like a certain feeling about it, and then she's like, God, I've just been waiting for you to fucking wake up. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm a little slow on that roll sometimes. It's just amazing because today, I can tell you honestly, I would not choose her again. But I don't resent or regret anything because I have our beautiful daughter. And that was really the karmic focus of that relationship, was to bring this beautiful little child into the world and allow us to heal through parenting and reparenting ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, so basically the relationship did what it was that you had set out to do, which it created a place for you to have a family and have a child and, be a mother. Mm-hmm. And these were all the things that you had been wanting and could not happen in the other relationship.
Yep.
And so, I mean, essentially it was successful.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't. Yeah. Right. So
like we should insert dun dun dun.
Until dun dun dun. Yeah. But until it wasn't. And right. So, and I know overall you were together for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so
married twice. But
right. Married twice.
Married for 16 years. Yeah.
Okay. Because the first time it wasn't a legal marriage.
I mean, it was. I mean, we know in our hearts it was our marriage, but we met in 2004 and got married in 2006.
Okay.
But, because gay rights and marriage didn't go into effect till 2015 all over the country. So,
So you did two ceremonies.
Yep. So we did 2 ceremonies, one for the family and for us, just to live that life and to live it openly and authentically, right? And then, in 2019, we made it legal. So,
Okay.
and that's good for Caden at that point. And I had to actually pay money for a second parent adoption so that the rest of the world would see me as her other mother in that sense,
Okay.
which a lot of straight people don't realize, like what we go through in order to protect our rights. And so it's not like we're willy-nilly getting pregnant in the back of a Ford, back of a truck, or we really have to be so mindful, and we're so intentional about wanting to start a family, which cracks me up when the right wing says, without getting too political, but like that gay parents are not good parents. Hello, we literally are almost taking college classes to like have a family, and it just can't happen just to happen. So
yeah, and I have to say, just having worked with just a large subset of the gay community that's late blooming, maybe identified as bisexual and whatnot for some time. And that piece that you're talking about with the intentionality behind having a family is actually, for a lot of women that are not out, that are not lifelong lesbians, it's like a deterrent for them. And they, so many of them end up with a man just to have kids without really fully admitting that to themselves, just so that they don't have to go through what you and Carrie went through.
I'll tell you though, I mean, we got really lucky because we had Caden on the second try. So
Wow.
it's much like a lot of hetero couples that I've known that went through fertility, as beautiful as they are together energetically, like they're like the perfect soulmate couple, and then they can't have children together. Like it's a science thing. It's just, it is what it is. And some people, it takes a long time.
Yes.
And it can be very costly and expensive,
yes.
and all that.
Yes.
Because it's not really one of those things that are covered by insurance.
Right. And so at the end of the day, it's like, even though you might think that you're going to have the easier route by grabbing a guy and just trying to quickly get pregnant, there is no guarantee that you're going to quickly get pregnant, basically, is. So
no, be authentic. I mean, really, like, I rather people live in their authenticity and live their true life, whether they want to explore with women or they stay to the bisexual place, and they're just, become more fluid in finding someone they truly love, and know that if you do want a family, you can just ask, like, you can ask her, like, hey, I really want to have a family. Do you, on the first couple of dates, like, really make those things known, because there's no reason, especially in this day and age, that you can't have everything you really want.
Absolutely. Okay. So you got everything you wanted.
It seems so from the outside. It would
seem so from the outside. Oh my gosh. And that's like, is that not the story? Like, that is so the story. That was my story. Like, anyone who looked at my life from the outside was like, wow.
Yeah, you guys traveled the world, and
we had 2 homes, and I had help, and I didn't have to work, and and everybody was like, wow, you've got the best life. Meanwhile, totally depressed, felt dead on the inside, didn't quite know why. So, you never know what's happening on the inside, even when it looks really good on the outside.
I will say I have never come face to face ever with anybody in my whole life, whether it's professional or personal, that has ever faulted me for being gay, because I just felt so comfortable in my skin. I think Carrie and I, wherever we bought a home or whatever street we were on, we were really well accepted, because I think people felt comfortable around us, being that we knew our roles within our relationship. And especially when we're, public facing in that moment, being out like on the street with our neighbors, or being at a mall, or being at the beach, like wherever we are, wherever we're walking around, clearly I look gay and Carrie never did. It's like, it's just one of those things where I love around the later in lifers in so many ways, because they do present so straight. And because of that, they wear like more rainbow. Like I've never worn rainbow stuff, and like really cute rainbow watch bands. And like
Yes.
they
It's
have
like,
their
how
little
can I
rainbow,
show? How can I
right, like
show I'm
rainbow
gay? Yeah.
earrings,
Yes.
or they put little rainbow, tattoos out, in places. And it's really sweet how the rainbow for me, after I met these later in lifers, like it meant something almost again, because I have been gay for so long. Like I have lived this life. I literally walk around with my gay out. I mean, like, unless you're like literally lived under a rock or something, like anybody walking next to me they're going to maybe think they're gay too, or they're going to see me as, wow, she's gay. I get the gay nod all the time, from other masks. We kind
You're
of
noticeably gay is what I call it. Noticeably gay.
noticeably gay. But you know what? Like the beginning of Carrie and my relationship, as much as it was so opposite and different at first from my first long relationship, it had so many red flags in the beginning. Like it's nuts, and I just think my fortitude around wanting to have a family, just like a lot of the later in lifers speak of, it's the same. It's like, I just wanted to have a family, and I found this lovely human being who would end up teaching me so many lessons, hindsight now.
Yeah. And just out of curiosity, when you say like there were all of these red flags in those early years when you just met her, even though maybe you felt the flag, like you felt the your nervous system react to something, but were you unaware that those were red flags at the time, or were you aware and you still went in?
That's a great question. I'm thinking of a few moments of. I remember us arguing around the time, like she wanted to get married so fast, and I really didn't. And that was my system saying, like, why don't I want to get married? Like, why? I mean, it's only been 2 years. Like, we could get to know each other a little bit more, but really, she was on that trajectory. But yeah, I just kind of felt that I would check in with myself, but I didn't have the tools that I have now. I didn't have this 3-year journey that I'm sitting in today, where I think I told you the other day, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I wake up now and I'm the best version of myself today. And I could 100% tell you, I was not at my best version back then. I really wasn't. I was definitely seeing the potential and living in that
potential
space.
Yeah, so common.
And I just kept thinking, well, she wants to get married, whatever. Let's have a party. Let's have fun. Like we care about each, I loved her, but I also knew she wasn't like my best friend. And I think that was another piece that was coming up for me, because I didn't have the same, like, I love Hallmark movies. We know, like, whoever's in my close circle knows this, but it wasn't that I saw love like a Disney movie and that it was princess and lovey and all this. I really saw myself on a porch with my best friend next to me. And during my life, I always thought of it as a woman, because I was like, I want to be married to my best friend. So in my mind, I loved all my friends who were girls. And I was like, yes, but I never thought to act on that any earlier than when I naturally, organically sort of came out for myself. But with Carrie in those early days, I think that's just how things showed up for me, where I would just kind of go, the little tip and let's see, what is this really talking about? But I still let it override, because I was so in what the future was going to hold, and maybe thinking I don't know if this is Aquarian of me or if this is just a me thing and how I was brought up. I mean, you can tell me that, but it's like I just felt like she was the person I was supposed to do this with. Have the family, have the kid. I knew she would be a good mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, like, I liked her mom. I liked her sisters. Like, I liked all of them. And I thought, you know what? We have good people on both sides of our life, which probably were helped out with this 18 years, that we had a good family existence and support system.
Mm-hmm.
She also didn't want to expand our coupleship as far as like bringing new couples into our life. She had a very small mind around only having her own friends and not being sort of more broad about like, that would be cool to have some other lesbian mom friends to hang out with and like surround ourselves with more of that kind of support. I think if that had happened earlier on, we might have, our relationship might have deepened, but I knew that she wasn't my biggest fan. I knew she wasn't my best friend. And I think that's how those moments showed up for me. Now there's just no way I would ever sit around for that anymore, no matter what the goal is at this point. It's like, I'd rather have the goal on my own than, like be in a relationship where you feel lonely most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. I mean, it's something I hear also from some of my straight friends that, they were getting a little bit older, they were getting into their 30s and they had dated different people. And, finally they met somebody that like their family liked and their friends liked and, was a good person. And it wasn't, wasn't the love of their life, wasn't their best friend, but they wanted to get going with their family and have a kid. And so they just got married and had a kid. And then it was like, yeah, this isn't really going to be the long-term thing, So I think it's common. And then I think we get on in our years and you already got the thing that you wanted, which was you really wanted to be a mom and you got that. And so of course today there isn't anything that would have you enter into a relationship again where you're getting those red flags.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, at this point, first of all, let me just a little shout out to the 50-year-old single women out there, because this shit is not for like, it's
the faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart. Yes. Exactly. I say that all the time.
I know. It's like, it isn't. It hits different in your 50s than in your 20s. Or even in your 30s when I met Carrie at that age.
I think it's important this also to hear from somebody who's a lifelong lesbian.
Yes.
Who's single, now after a same-sex marriage that didn't last. It's not only us late bloomers that have a hard time, meeting people that we might want to partner with, but, it's everybody.
Yeah. And it's funny because for 3 years I've been hearing that there's a mask shortage and there isn't, it really is. It's like, it's about a healed, moment. It's like, there's not a mask shortage. It's a shortage of women who have done the work.
Yes.
And have leaned into therapists like you out in the world that are like offering, hey, whether it's in a group, whether it's in a, one-on-one setting of like, I want to live my most authentic life. And I think women are in general, but lesbians in particular, really lean into the alcohol and the bars and like trying to escape the one thing they can't escape. And that's literally themselves. And then they wonder why they can't have these deep, loving relationships that they so crave.
Yeah. Which I think, must come from, aside from just being a trauma-filled society and we're all trying to survive however we grew up, even if it was lots of just tiny, small T traumas or big T traumas. Mm-hmm. But then, layer on top of that compulsory heterosexuality, coming out as a kid and having to face that everywhere around you, which then creates internalized homophobia. Mm-hmm. And so even though your identity and that you're gay, you're lesbian, But I think the ability to really feel very comfortable with that and really authentic and do the work to show up authentically and to really be in your sensuality and sexuality as a gay woman is hard because of societal constructs.
Yeah.
Even if you're a lifelong lesbian, you know, and I've really noticed this in dating people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is. It's a challenge, and I think that's why I love hanging out with the later in lifers. Is that coming out of a stretch of 18 years, and before that, another 8 years, I have not been single, much like a lot of them. Since I was 24, 25, and so even though it's funny, they're like, if I even understand them, or I even say that I get it, or that I'm similar to them, I actually get kickback because I wasn't with a man.
Right.
And I'm like, I get that, but there's still the same bullshit that you work through with a relation. A relationship is just a mirror for all of us. So yeah, you're learning it with a man. I'm learning my shit with a woman. And at the end of the day, we're just souls meeting souls. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. So
I love that.
So coming out of this marriage, and Carrie and I making such a conscious uncoupling choice, which, yes, I'm grateful that she was a woman, and doing that with a woman is probably, knowing my friends, and knowing what they've been through, because men sometimes, yes, women are. Carrie and I were. That's one thing that I'm so grateful, and why we're friends today still, and co-parent and are amicable, is because we at the end of the day made a really intentional choice in how to uncouple with each other. And for Kaden, for our daughter, and our kid is thriving because we are wanting to be happy, and we're allowed to cheer each other on to be happy now. And
yes,
and we can support one another. When my ex went through a breakup with a man, and it's interesting because she had never leaned into working on some of her trauma with abandonment around her father wounds, but because she started dating a man, that started to pop up for her. And I think no matter what you're going through, you're going to learn through that lens of whatever you need to go through. And they always laugh, lesbians always, break up and come back together, and break up and come back together. But I think, what I've learned through the spiritual journey is that, first of all, no judgment. Everybody needs to just be fucking okay with allowing your friends to go back as many times as they need to, and just cheer them on and be there for them, hold space for them, because whatever's meant to be learned is learned in the going back.
It reveals itself. Yes,
it does. It will always reveal itself. And, through so much of, this last 3 years for myself, it's like, I'm absolutely waking up to a new version of me daily.
Yeah.
And I know you can attest to this last year and a half, at least,
it's last year on steroids, because we started connecting a year ago when I was in a really dark space. I was in a really, really dark space, and we started connecting really intensely. And you are so far from where you were then, so far in a year.
I know.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And you and I are also in real life friends. I mean, I've stayed at your house and that kind of thing. It's not like we're a virtual friendship. Like we're an in-person friendship, too. So it's
yes.
And but yeah, you've been such a witness and such a beautiful I will say you're very much a lighthouse for me. It's like in the darker days that I've had, and those moments where I choose to sit in the muck, you're a beautiful lens for that, is just to be like, okay, so we're going through it, and I just want to validate for you, but after the divorce, it was interesting how my ex-wife like really went on a dating bender. I've never seen the woman be so social in all my life. I was like, you don't have a business lunch date. You're going on a date. Like, it was so funny to watch your spouse, your ex-spouse, kind of go through this motion. And
can I just ask if was the divorce mutually decided upon, or did one of you want it?
Yeah, I asked for the divorce, but I will tell you, it had come up for years, a few years before that.
Okay.
Like we can't connect. We stopped having sex, all the things that are like big red, no-nos in a marriage. You really need to like create safe space for an emotional connection to like have this happen. And she really pulled out emotionally for off and on for years. And there's so many parts of me that wish I had what I have now, but I also wouldn't have what I have now had I stayed in our marriage. And that's what's so mind-boggling to me. And also why I can just tell you that, if one of your listeners is kind of teetering on like, is it going to be okay for the kids? Is it going to be okay for myself? Are we all going to be okay? Well, first of all, there's a book called Unconscious Uncoupling that Gwyneth Paltrow kind of made famous. But I will tell you, it is fantastic for like really eye-opening conversations and prompts and things to really like ask your spouse and to think about for yourself. But I will tell you that staying miserable is the worst thing for your children. It really is. It's like,
I agree.
My dad said, I stayed with your mom longer than I probably should have. And I mean, I was happy when they got a divorce. I was like, I looked over at my brother and I was like, this is going to be good. Like, don't worry. This is going to be, he was crying. He was 7, I was 9. But yeah, so with Carrie, it really was like, it ended up then, once I said the thing out loud, I think she just would never say it out loud. Okay. And it was going to have to be me at that point because, first of all, I just really was ready to just be happy, honestly. And I really wanted her to be happy. And I just knew that we couldn't do this work anymore. I didn't have it even in me. I needed to like rest. I needed to like fill back my cup. It was very depleted at this point. And it was hard. It was a hard decision to make. I called a new therapist, and in my intake with this therapist in September 2021, I said, hey, before we get into all the intake stuff, I said, we're going to start therapy probably a little different than you're used to. And I said, I really need help asking for a divorce. And so due to the pain of this marriage and kind of how I lost myself in this marriage around not having a voice any longer. And I probably showed up avoidant in that time because of the hurt. I just shut down. I really did. Yeah. And I mean, we couldn't have had more emotional space than literally between the South and the North of the Grand Canyon. Like, how much further emotionally could we be? Wow. And yet she asks for more emotional space. Oh, wow. And that was really the tipping point for me, was when we relocated from Oregon to Arizona. And years before that, she had asked for an open marriage. And I said, well, I'd rather not do an open marriage. I'd rather get a divorce than have an open marriage. But she still wanted to stay married. So she said no to that. And then the way that I kind of asked her for the divorce was I said, in a note, in a letter, and bind me. And just so you know, that should have been a phone call. But because of our dynamic at that point, the safest place for me is to write a letter to her, because I wouldn't have been able to get out what I needed to say in a way that I cared to say it. And she was taken aback by it, because she really thought we were going to dig in and do this work. And I told her that I would be open to having an open marriage at this point. If the real goal here, from what I heard in one of our last conversations around it, was to keep the unit together, if it was for Caden's sake, then I could do that, knowing we were living like platonic roommates at this point, which I think a lot of people understand.
So the point of the opening of the marriage was for sensual and sexual connection with other people?
Yes.
Okay.
For her mostly, because I'm a freaking demisexual. What I lacked and missed was just connection.
Yeah.
Because I like to talk to people. I like to know what makes people tick. Like, I really love that. Like, that just energizes me.
Okay.
So it was one of these things where she was like, oh my God, look at all the damage I've done. She had an aha moment, a come to Jesus moment for herself. And she said all the right things in that moment. It was actually really liberating and really lovely for her to say, I don't want that. I'm so sorry for asking for continued emotional space. I don't think, and basically I was like number 4 on the totem pole, and with Eve, I was also, kind of never chosen. Like I understand around kids and things like that. And even if I date somebody with with children now, it's like, I'll never I'll never say I want to be first in your life.
Of course. Yeah.
I get that from a mom perspective, but there are ways to show somebody in a relationship that they really matter. Like they really, like, I'm making intentional time for you, or I want to do something sweet for you because I'm thinking about you or whatnot. Like, things that I naturally did and do. So it was, I think at the end of that conversation, she really realized that we just weren't happy. I've always been more spiritually inclined than her and seeing things from different perspectives. And I just knew I wanted somebody at some point that was more aligned in that. So,
and this was during COVID that this fell apart.
Yeah, well, it was 2021. Yeah, it was like,
that was COVID.
Yeah, but in Arizona, like you would never know. Like when we moved here, it was like I was the only person in the Safeway, wearing a mask, because I was so ingrained from being in COVID up in Oregon, which was really locked down.
Yeah.
So it was a little culture shock when we first got here, but but then Carrie and I talked to Caden and we let her know what was happening. I moved into the guest room because I asked for the divorce. I just felt like I'll go into the guest room and Caden would just start learning about how this looks and what this feels like. And, it was really hard living under the same roof at this point. There was every now and then she would just try to flirt with me. And she asked me on several occasions if this is what I really wanted. And so I appreciate that she did that because in the past she had said like, are you sure this is what you wanted? And I changed my mind. So, valid first time asking me, but I think by the third time I was like, oh my God, please just don't do this anymore. Like this time I really made the decision.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was creating, a friendship with somebody that I'd met in my past. And Carrie felt that was an emotional affair that I was having and that I couldn't have made the decision. This is where her brain was at with me at this point, that I couldn't possibly have come up with this on my own. And so she created a story around someone from my past who, by the way, not that they don't have to be, but married, kids, and we were just more like honoring, like getting to connect and have a good conversations. And we just aligned on a lot of things. And, nothing happened during that time, but I allowed this person in to see my whole process. And I think Carrie was like, who's so-and-so? And I was like, oh my God, I've known her off and on LinkedIn, which is true. Like there was never any long conversations except for one time at a trade show when we first met. And that was it, back in 2015. And this is 2022 right now.
Yeah. So how did Carrie get this person's name to say, like, who is this person?
Well, I had no idea, but she started, because I asked for the divorce, she started looking at my phone records.
Oh, wow.
And it was like that was really, really like, are you kidding me? Like, this is stupid. And I didn't realize, like, one of the first things I did as soon as we knew we were going to get divorced was like split up the phone bill and all that. Like, it's crazy how enmeshed you are with a human being for that long. Like, how your world and how, everything is like in one of our names or both
Yeah.
names
Well,
or,
I had the same with the person who was my catalyst, who I ended up with for 8 years. At the end, I mean, she did actually start connecting with someone emotionally who lived on the other side of the country.
yeah,
And she said, I want to go visit her.
yeah,
And she started acting really differently. And I said I wasn't really comfortable with that unless we went together.
right.
And then she kept acting just so bizarre. Went to couples therapy. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. She's lying. And I knew it was lying. And then when she finally left the house, which she said she was doing for 2 weeks to just take some time, I went to the phone bill. I did the same thing. And that's where I found, because she was on the bill with me. So that's where I found the phone number. And I called the phone number, and it was the person's answering machine. And then I found out, okay, she's been on the phone with this person all day, every day. So yes, the phone bill, I don't know if it's still like that. I don't know if there's anything like that today, but yeah, I can relate to that,
Yeah. And, it was a real challenge. I mean, because then Carrie picked up the phone as we were arguing, and Carrie called said number, and my friend answered, and basically Carrie berated and said, don't talk to my wife until after we get divorced. And then progressed to text her husband.
Wow.
All kinds of things on every social platform she could.
Oh my gosh. So she went like Looney Tunes.
She went loony lesbian tunes.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it, because nowhere in my DNA would I ever do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you're done with me, then be done with me. That's like, maybe that's an Aquarian thing. I have no idea. But I just don't I can't go into that drama. It just doesn't work for me. And meanwhile, so then I didn't talk to my friend for a bit, but there was like a real connection with us. And this is on the eve basically of my spiritual awakening and learning about more of like soulmate love. And, my dad passed away 2020. It really changed something in me, because for 40 years, I had seen how he loved my stepmother and how he would say to her or me, I'm so happy. And I go, oh, good. Like, why are you happy today? Because I'm looking over at my best friend making us dinner. Like, he was so verbal about how so much in love he was. Like as I got older and I was more of like in my 20s and 30s, he'd be like, man, Mary Jean and I last night. And I'm like, yeah, la, 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 la. Like, I don't want to hear this, Father. I don't want to hear this, Pops. It's like, no, I don't need to know you and Mary Jean were physical last night. Like,
yeah,
that is
getting
not,
it on. No, thank you.
But good for them up into their 70s. I mean, when he passed away, I mean, they probably had sex the week before, like for real. Like, and I'm like thinking to myself and looking at my whole relationship, that's really where the big the light went off. And so after Carrie and I signed papers, she was already well in dating and all this other stuff. And I was fortunate enough that after a while, my friend and I, obviously, we reconnected again, and we're like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, that was really scary. And by the time Carrie got out of the house, then, it felt more safe to sort of be friends with this person, because at that point there was nothing like romantic going on at all. It was really, she was going through it with her husband, and she was also, not sure about her sexuality. And I remember that's one of the first reasons why I reached out to you.
I remember when you reached out to me
because
to say
she would be considered, if she were to go through all that, she would be a later in life. And at that point, I probably was her catalyst in that moment, in that
Yeah.
space. But I was the catalyst that absolutely wanted to have a life with this person. And I didn't know why. Like, I didn't know why. I was just so spiritually drawn to her. Like, it
Yeah.
was just like magnetic. And it was 6 months later that year that I would finally get to like meet her in person and have a dinner, because her work brought her here or whatnot. And I picked her up at the airport one time, and we were just like, whoa. I knew soulmates always, like you can have more than one soulmate. You can have platonic soulmates. Your mother could be your soulmate from another life. Like, there's all this kind of different meanings to soulmates, which most people know. But the term twin flame was like a really intriguing thing. The twin flame that most people heard about in the beginning would very much reflect a Hallmark movie in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a rom-com, in a serendipity, in a Sleepless in Seattle kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so far from the truth of
Mm-hmm.
it being that. It is I went to a shaman. I met River, who is my co-host on my podcast, Live Out Loud. And River and I met in the middle of a Utah desert at one of my friends' her hip camp. I'll pimp it out. Land Beyond Zion. It's a cool place in Utah. Anyway, so I met River there. And who knew, River is 100% one of my platonic soulmates in life, like for sure. Like we talk about everything. And I remember her telling me, oh, I've got this really good friend who's a spiritual counselor and shaman. And I was like, I want to meet her, because I told her about this whole story, how, 7 years ago, I met this woman, and it's like the world stopped around us. We were in the middle of a ballroom from a trade show, 200 people. And, here my friend walks her right up, has told me that my friend's boss is coming and like we should meet, blah, blah, blah. And it was literally like, I had a remembering, I had a knowing. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? And literally the next 2 hours went by in a zip. Like, I took a couple of selfies of the night, and it wasn't until like 8 months in where I was like, I wonder if I have those selfies. Because she was like, I think you took pictures that night. And then when I found them in my deep Facebook, and when I showed them to her, she's like, oh my God, I would never like put my hand on someone's shoulder. I mean, this was like after we had this awareness. I was like, okay, so you felt this too. Like, and it could have been just a platonic thing, it ended up feeling romantic at certain pieces. And we actually had the same shaman do a dual reading for us when we were hanging out, because we were like, okay, let's just like have this for fun. Like we were both just into it. And yeah, we were told that we were true twin flames. And I had another shaman who brought up her name and, pieces about her. And she had someone who also kind of mentioned me in a way. And there was lots of synchronicities and lots of like, there was such a deep knowing that I would wake, like there was such a spiritual 5D connection that I would wake up in the middle of the night, and we're across country, and I would literally pick up my phone and a text would come through. And because I was about to text her, like, hey, just woke up, thinking, like I heard a sound, and she'd text me and say, oh my God, something fell in my house. Like, and I woke up to a sound of like a boom or something like that. It was just weird. And so it was just confirmed over and over again. And so there's a romantic notion around twin flames, and it's still a beautiful thing. Like if two twins are really at the same place in life, much like when you meet a soulmate, then there is a beyond otherworldly feeling when you have a deep soul connection and everything else is aligned, where you're both actually attracted to one another, and like you just want to touch them. You really want to be known and know them the same way. But over time and being educated and actually doing my own work around therapy, IFS, at EDMR, and my spiritual counseling, the twin flame journey is really meant to awaken you when you're meant to be awoken. And it's a journey of such a profound unconditional love that is mirroring the unconditional love for yourself.
Yes.
And so what you're really falling in love, because if you've never heard the term before, we share a soul. And so one half of my soul is in her and the other half of my soul is in me. And so when we're together, it's literally like, finally, like you just feel like, finally, like we're back together. Like we've been looking and seeking each other. And it's typically age gaps. It's typically long distance or out of a country.
Yeah.
And you meet in these moments like of just doing life. And of course we were both married. Like I have never kissed anybody in those 18 years. I'd never done any of that. So, and she hadn't either, but there was a feeling for both of us when we finally acknowledged what was going on. Like, you know, wow, we wanted to kiss each other that night. We wanted to just hang out with each other. And so, you know, 7-8 years later, it's just nuts that it felt the same way. And so once you're on this journey and you really do the work, you just realize that this person is leveling you up at a faster pace. And that's why you're seeing yourself for the first time through their lens, through their eyes, through that mirror. And you're having dark nights of the soul. And I was like curled up crying, and it was challenging and painful. It was more painful than my breakup with Eve, you know, and like it felt literally more painful than even going through my divorce. Like it is on another level of pain, but the pain is awakening you and like awaken myself to wanting to be more for me, wanting to be more for my child, wanting more out of my friendships. And it really helped me to focus on what really mattered. And that's also when I realized like, I just want to lean into the core group of friends and these beautiful women. And I want to know them like I want them to know me the way I want to know them, and really making like adult friendships, like my soul, platonic soulmates, like really lean into like that love, that platonic soul love. And because that filled me up as much as this twin flame feeling. And when you don't get to have that person at the end of all of that, it even becomes more painful, but it teaches you more about yourself than any other journey. You come back to yourself and you realize that your vibration and your authenticity needs to be number one. And that the more that you love yourself, the more that you choose you in this and know that whatever, like it's the let them thing from Mel Robbins, right? Let them do it, because you're finding peace in a place now, and you're finding yourself wishing them love and light, even when you're no longer talking, when you're in a really healthy, beautiful relationship of two healing people, because we're never fully healed, right, Samantha? It's like,
yeah, life work.
It's a life work, exactly. But if we're healing together and healing on that journey together, then we'll balance back and forth between divine femme and divine masculine. And that's a beautiful thing, but not on the twin flame journey. Until you're in union, then you will have the balance of power, or whatever you want to say, that balance of energy, the shift in energy. Until then, one is divine feminine and one is divine masculine, regardless if it's two men, if it's two women, or if it's male and female.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating when you realize that and the truth of what it is, you're like, you find a space of complete and utter gratitude for that person. Like I couldn't love her more today, because if I'm to love myself, I have to love her in the same way, because we share that soul. So if I'm denying or not loving parts of myself, then I'm denying and not loving parts of myself.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a journey after all of those years, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, to find divine love, it is worth the wait. And you're going to have to go through different people. And as you know, this last year, I dated someone who is ACA. And I don't know if you've done a podcast on ACA yet.
Mm-mm, I have not.
Okay. Well, you are a professional in ACA.
I taught you about ACA.
You taught me about ACA. And there's a lot of people who don't know that they are, or that maybe if somebody is showing up as a, like, because narcissism is being thrown around and they're not narcissists at all. But
Yeah.
sometimes big trauma shows up as narcissism in different dynamics.
Yeah.
And, this last year, through parts of that relationship and that friendship, because of you, thankfully, you sent me on my journey right out of the gate with a great book. And I read that freaking book and I really learned a lot from it. And
It's a great book. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Put it in the show notes because that's a fascinating side of my journey too. But without her, I couldn't be who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another soul, a very soul conscious relationship there,
Mm-hmm.
and a deep, beautiful connection that I'm grateful she's still in my life. It's just really challenging when you kind of can't live up to certain expectations and that type of stuff. But it's a whole other part of why today I wake up as the best version of myself.
Yeah, you had to do a lot of work this year. Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm in a joyful space and I can meet beautiful people and I can honor if it feels aligned or not now. And through learning all of that is like learning and I got my voice back. Like I've really got my voice back, and it was lost for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that for you. I'm so happy for you. I know. It's wonderful. It's been 56, such a joy.
Yeah.
To watch you, get your voice back and know what you're feeling and be able to speak up for it. And, in a kind and gentle and thoughtful way, but, really going with what feels right to you, not going with what is going to make other people happy.
Yeah. I can truly say I'm a former people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
It still will every now and then, like my ex-wife will ask something of me and it triggers a little bit for me to not want to fix it for her, but it's a shorter period. Like I will rev for 24 hours, 36 hours. It won't linger very long anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people on their own spiritual or in this healing journey that you speak to so much or that you offer in your groups, and, really allowing a safe space and a place that, people can find themselves. I think what you have taught me so much about in our friendship is the crucial role of validator, of just, and I don't think women in friendship, whether or romantic, and I'm just going to speak for lesbians right now because I can't speak of other genders or bisexuality, but I can say for myself in seeing how this shows up is that women don't validate each other enough. And I don't know if it's because they're coming from such an unhealed space and from a place where they're not quite on the journey. They're not quite on the road yet. They're not ready to meet me on the road or the hill. And I feel that when I'm generous and validate for somebody, that they almost don't know what to do with it. It's really fascinating out there. But the thing that I really have loved, and I know I say these on our polos, to you, I say it to you. So saying it out in public is not hard because I'm so grateful and feel so much love for you in the sense of you literally will sometimes take something that I'm just revving about a little bit. It's not even a big rev. And you're like, I so see that. And I just want to validate your feelings. And we're best friends, but like, it still hits, you know? And now I've like paying it forward to other people, and it's really lovely. And if we can continue to model that, I think more women, don't be afraid to just validate your friends and like say it out loud. Don't just nod. Don't just but like tell the person like, hey, I hate seeing your hurt, but I love seeing you like go through this. And I see it and I feel it, and like validate somebody, validate some new girl you're dating, and just say, wow, you know, I get it. Like, and also give people the benefit of the doubt. Let them show you who they are before taking your brain to the worst case scenario. Like, just give people the benefit of the doubt.
I love it. It's been quite a journey.
I know, it's been quite a journey. It's just getting
started. Yeah.
It's just good right now. It's been starting, right?
Started, but you're really in the good.
I'm in a good flow right now. Good flow. I feel really happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Genuinely confident, genuinely content.
Yes.
Genuinely joyful.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm in the same place.
I know.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's good.
I'm so glad you're doing this podcast. Like, it makes me so happy. You've been a guest on so many that this is just so great to be able to be on here and you know, give you some love.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story. And I think it's, you know, I think we're all having a human experience as souls wandering around, right?
Yeah.
Two-footed journey.
We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're wearing our meat suits right now.
Exactly. And, you know, and so being kind to yourself, having grace, and also having curiosity, and knowing that, you know, as Michele said, a former people pleaser, and at the age of 56, we're the same age. I mean, you can grow and evolve. You can make changes. You don't have to live stuck in the same way. You don't have to feel like you're too old. You know, this kind of work.
You're never too old to be happy.
Yeah, or to be authentic.
Yeah, to be real. I will tell you that my ex-wife, really did a number on my head by saying that I was superficial for so many years, that I actually started to believe her. And I didn't give myself the benefit of the doubt. And what a fucking shame for that. You know, it's like, I think if you're in the muck, if you're in the messy middle, as a lot of later in lifers will say, I want to urge you to really make a list and visualize what you want your life to look like.
Yeah.
And don't think about it. Just write whatever comes to your mind and really pay attention and look at that list. And if it doesn't look like where you're standing right now, then you need to make a shift. We're not trees. You know, it's like we can move.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we certainly can. And you're living proof. I'm living proof. We know that. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with so many people who have made such unbelievable changes in their lives and are living their best lives, whether they're partnered or not, but they are authentically connected to themselves. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and for being here.
I know, it's good to be here.
Love you.
Love you too.
Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach. Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful